Well, good afternoon, everyone watching. We appreciate you taking the time. My name is Chris Gahl with Visit Indy, and we're proud that we're here at the Vogue for our On the Table, the second iteration, presented by West Fork Whiskey and hosted right here at the Vogue Theatre in the heart of Broad Ripple. You know, our job at Visit Indy is to promote and market Indianapolis to the world, and a big chunk of that, a big portion of that is our food and beverage and cultural scene. And so today, we're gonna be talking about food and beverage in the industry. We did the first iteration of this back in January at the Hi-Fi. It was a very healthy discussion about COVID-19 and how the restaurant and event scene has been impacted and how we're progressing. So today we're going to talk about that as well. Over the next 60 minutes, we've got 6 incredible community leaders, individuals that are shaping how our industry is bouncing back. And I want to introduce you to our 6 prominent leaders who will be giving us their feedback and their best practices today. And then we're going to jump into some questions. We also want you to be participating. So you can drop it right into the chat there. We're going to take your questions. We're going to answer them. So as long as they're PG-13 related or better, nothing incendiary. First, I want to introduce 2 friends from West Fork Whiskey. They are the co-founders of West Fork Whiskey. Blake Jones, David McIntyre. They founded the business in Indy in 2016. They're now up to, I think, 13 locations. You're in 13 states, I should say. 13 states. That growth is significant. And you have plans to expand. We saw news recently you're going to be in Westfield. 35,000 square foot facility. In fact, I think you're breaking ground next week on Tuesday. So that's pretty timely to have Blake and David here. Clay is here, another friend, Sun King. We cannot say enough about Sun King and what they've done for our community and everything they do to give back. Clay Robinson is a co-founder along with his friend Dave Colt. 2009, you have launched and you have grown 6 tap rooms, hundreds of awards, 3 breweries, a barrel aging house, an artisan distillery, and a tap room at the Indianapolis International Airport. It looks crowded when I go by, so congratulations on that. Carrie Abbott, someone I really, really respect, and she has transformed our industry here in Indianapolis. Newfangled Confections. She's taken this into a national brand. She's also producing what I consider usable crack, and that is Friddle. Friddle. And we're going to talk about how Friddle came to be. Did you know Carrie was a caterer, and she came up with this recipe for a wedding, and next thing you know it's being sold on QVC, on Amazon. It's found on shelves, retailers across the nation. She's helping us score conventions and events and being an indie advocate. So Carrie, we appreciate you being here. Also, Allison Kiefer is here. Gallery Pastry Shop. I know there are hundreds of people tuning in who love Gallery Pastry Shop. And when you walk inside there, it's so cool because everything feels so curated. And I know you work very hard. Every little chair and table and light. So you work with local artists to do that, and that's really cool. I cannot believe this, but again, we're going to talk about it, a new gallery at 16th Street in New Jersey. So a lot of resiliency here during the pandemic. And finally, certainly not least, Brian Willsey, along with his wife. They started Tinker House Events back in 2017. It's been difficult because of the pandemic. A lot of events, weddings in particular, have paused, and we're going to talk about how that's affected. And moreover, what's on the horizon for the events industry. And if you like Hotel Tango, you're going to like Brian and what he has to say because he helped start another one of Indy's favorite watering holes back in 2014 as a co-founder of Hotel Tango. So virtually, will you give everyone a round of applause as we introduce our speakers? I think I can hear you. Okay, so one of the things that was on my mind is preparing for this On the Table, the second iteration, and I want to hear from you 3 in particular. Supply chain. During COVID-19 and this pandemic, and for anyone, has your supply chain tangibly been interrupted? Are there products, are there pieces of your business that have been interrupted that have caused a hiccup here during the pandemic, and has it gotten better?
Every single day.
So every single day. So what are some of the tangible
Aluminum cans are a huge issue. There's a international shortage. There's not enough runtime on factories that make cans. Shipping containers, there's a shortage of shipping containers. So when we're bringing in products, malts, we get a lot of our malt from Germany for our Oktoberfest, and they couldn't get the malt over in time because they couldn't get shipping containers. Our orange vanilla cream ale, we use Seville orange peels, and that was affected by shipping containers. So every single day there's a new challenge that you're like, wow, we can't get that in time to make it all work.
Where does most of the aluminum come from?
Aluminum, actually, every beverage can in America has at least 60% post-consumer recycled aluminum, so you can continue to recycle and make more aluminum. So if we never mined another ounce of bauxite, you could continue to have aluminum cans because they're infinitely recyclable, but all of our cans come from Ball in Monticello, Indiana, and there's manufacturers all over the world, and I spent a lot of time over the last year with our purchasing manager, Kara, chasing down cans and building a stockpile that's in an off-site warehouse of 1.5 million just blank stainless or blank aluminum cans, so that as we are unable to get them from our supplier, we can cycle those out, put labels on them, and still keep our beers on the shelf.
What about the key components that actually go into making your beer? Any supply chain hiccups there?
Yeah, again, raw materials, just getting grain to you, actual shipping is doubled in the last year, so the cost of freight, the cost of everything that we have, it costs more, it takes longer to get to you, and so we're forced to plan farther and farther ahead just to make sure that we have the things that we need. So right now at Sun King, we're busy planning and figuring out what we're doing in the first quarter of next year, so because we've already mapped out what we're doing for the rest of the year.
David, Blake, what about you two in West Fork? How's the supply chain been interrupted, if at all?
Echoing exactly what Clay said, every facet of it has been affected. Not just cans, because we do have canned products, but the glass market, whether it's glass bottles or glasses for our tasting room. That market has been completely interrupted.
And that's even here in the United States. So when you get something manufactured here, whether it's here or not, in China or Europe, we get a lot of glass from Europe. Most of it's from the United States, but it's everywhere. I mean, you're getting it twice as expensive and twice to 3 times the time, but yet our consumers want it right now at the same price. And so that has impacted a number of our different.
Yeah, we've just had to lock in year-long contracts for a lot of our inputs, which we're in a good place to do that. But the craft industry in general, especially just take glass as an example. There are companies that haven't been able to bottle whiskey or spirits for 6 months, waiting on different types of glass.
Yeah, I was with our distributor yesterday having a catch-up meeting, and they said that they're having issues with a lot of the suppliers that supply beer to them not being able to get cans. So they're seeing out of stocks from other suppliers, which therefore then, it's good for someone like us who's worked really hard to kind of shore up our supply. But there are a lot of people who are unable to package products and even get them out to market right now.
You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to echo that sentiment. I read this morning there are reports in the industry called Mark Brown, and if you're in the booze industry, everyone's reading this report. And North Carolina, Vermont, and those are 2 of just random states that I'm mentioning here, are literally out of stock of liquor on the shelf because of coming out of COVID. So the supply chains across the board in every single industry, and I'm sure they're going to echo this as well with their inputs and pastries, I'm sure, is the exact same. Everything takes longer, it costs more, but people expect it for the same price and yesterday. And that's very difficult to deal with.
Does that translate into angry consumers? You've got brand advocates that are listening, they're watching, they love West Fork, they love all the products, they want to get Sun King, and you have a supply chain interruption and the consumer is upset.
So yes, it translates to angry consumers. The internet allows people to express themselves, and we take a lot of time checking out that and trying to combat things or just make sure people are aware. We've been talking about this can shortage as publicly as we can for quite some time now. Our latest seasonal release, we do it every year, it's called Grapefruit Jungle or GFJ. We had to use a different IPA can and put stickers on it. And a guy was having one at an Indians game, and he left 2 reviews on Untapped. The first one, he was like, this is pretty good. And then the second one, he was like, I just noticed this is a sticker. Is it GFJ or is it Lupulin Astronaut? Come on, Sun King, I thought you're better than that. You can find a can supplier. And I'm like, like, no, he's like, you're cutting corners to save costs. It's like, no, it actually costs more because it takes more labor to get labels on cans, and you already paid for the can, and then you have to add a label. So we're losing margin on every can that we relabel, but it's the only way that we can actually get product to market. And no matter how many times we say that, tens of people will listen. There'll be new people who are like, wow, there's an aluminum can shortage. I had no idea. And then most of the rest of the world is just like, give me that, and I want it for $9.99.
Carrie, Allison, Brian, any supply chain interruptions in what you're doing every day?
Probably not on our smaller specialty candy, but chocolate. Yeah, chocolate. I mean, we're being asked to place our order. We buy direct. We're lucky to be able to do that with a premium chocolate, but I was just asked to place all of holiday. I mean,
So right now, you're
yes,
already
yeah.
thinking about December.
Yeah, and like Clay, I mean, we have our marketing plans, obviously, like a year in advance so that we can build towards that, but not this holiday. And not only that, it's just the shipping. We don't ship chocolate like in the summer. So you usually place an order once a month or so, you build up. But chocolate, not having chocolate is definitely a deal breaker for a chocolate company. And the other is, by the way, I just appreciate this education series because this is a healthy way to kind of get out these issues that we all face in a different way. It isn't just, I'll pay the shipping, I'll pay the refrigeration, I'll get my best projection right now, but it's the cash. Like to actually buy all that chocolate at once. I mean, we want to sit up here like, we're all hot stuff, but everything, just when you said everything costs more and takes longer, all that is true. So just to stop the entire thing to say, and go ahead and buy all of your, your supplies right now.
And what's dawning on me, and again, if you have questions, we want to hear from you, put them in, and our panelists will answer those. Each of your brands is so significant. It's community-minded, it's tasty, it's fun to be around, and yet the pandemic has caused real struggles. Loss of income, loss of employees, loss of products and services. And so for those watching and listening and loving on these brands, give them a little grace. And I suppose that is with any restaurant or hotel or special event venue. We have taken a hit. In fact, in the state of Indiana, there are about 215,000 residents who were laid off during the pandemic. And so my next question is about the other hot topic, which is all about labor. We keep hearing about labor shortages. You go by a Starbucks and they're offering incentives. Hotels have incentives. Restaurants have incentives. How have you been impacted? As we heard about supply chain, what about labor? Are you having trouble finding qualified individuals to roll up their sleeves and continue working? Let's start with West Fork.
We've been fortunate that we're a small team at this point in time, and we've retained our entire team throughout the last year, thankfully. But it's definitely a concern for us as we're opening a new facility that's a 200-seat restaurant, an event center, and 18,000 square feet of production, and we're going to need a lot of hands for that. So it's a major worry point for us for sure moving forward.
Sun King, labor shortage?
It's definitely affected us. We were fortunate to maintain most of our folks, and after furloughs and other things, bring most people back on the full-time side. We've got about 55 people full-time that operate between our locations and make the place work, and we're probably 150 part-time people between all 6 locations. And on some levels, I think we're fortunate. We've got a good reputation. We do a lot in the community that actually draws a lot of younger people who are looking to work for a good company. We try to create a good culture, treat people well. We pay better than minimum wage, and we've created a good environment. So coming out of COVID, we were fortunate to bring some of the folks back. We changed some service styles and actually upped our service game. So we kind of brought in a different level of service, and we were fortunate to get some really great folks and have been really lucky that those people like it, and then they tell their friends, and then we end up kind of gathering them. But even with that in mind, as they took away restrictions and it's like, you can go back to 100% capacity. Well, we couldn't go back to 100% capacity because the people that we had were the people that we had. And like, we're slowly hiring. And as we get good people, and we'll hire 5 people and 1 will stick. You know, we'll put out a call and you'll get 10 responses and 2 will show up for an interview. And so, you know, so every time we get a new person, we're like, okay, well, we can open a little bit more of a section. We can add a few more tables. So it's a really gradual thing. And just like you said, and in the hospitality industry, people show up and they want to sit down right now. They're not necessarily, they're like, well, what's with the wait?
You have an empty seat. I can sit there.
Yeah. Like,
Which you guys can probably.
yeah.
So, Brian, your thoughts?
Well, we also have a small team, mighty, thank God, but you know, we're seeing shortages in some of our bar staff. We're trying to do larger events as they start to come back online. Something I didn't expect was, and I heard some catering experience over here, but we have a list of caterers that we work with for some of our events, and those are the folks that we work with that are having the labor shortage, that we are getting complaints from our clients saying, I reached out to your caterer that you told me to talk to, and they haven't been able to get back to me, or they aren't able to service my event, or I'm unable to communicate with them effectively to even plan something. So that, it's hard because it makes you look bad, but in reality, they're struggling just as much as the rest of us, and they're not doing it on purpose. You know, it's just where we are.
Allison, you feeling the same pain?
Absolutely the same thing. Line cooks right now. I think I see everyone in the industry posting about line cooks. It's almost become a joke at this point to get line cooks, and the minimum wage of them coming in, you know, traditionally it was $10 to $12, and now we're seeing $15 to $20 plus a $500 signing bonus if you stay for so long. And we've actually started offering our employees incentives. If you bring somebody on that stays with us for 3 months, then you'll get a bonus on your check. So we're trying to get creative with ways like that. Luckily, when we opened our downtown location, it was kind of a weird time during COVID in July. A lot of people were had been laid off for a long time. A lot of people were wanting to get back to work. And we had some other employees that came to us who were working for larger companies who just didn't agree with what was going on in some of those companies. So we were fortunate to get a large leadership team, and they've been able to bring a lot of solid talent in too for us.
That's good. Yeah, incentives, you see that everywhere. Corporate America, down to the small business, and it's part of the fabric of trying to get the workforce back in action. Next year at this time, what are we going to be seeing in each of your industries? Next year at this time, we're sitting here, we're on the table, part 3, we're talking about restaurants and events and hospitality and the beverage industry. What's it going to look like?
I mean, who knows is probably the best answer I can give. I mean, I hope someone up here can give me a crystal ball and let me know what I expect, but we have no idea what's going to happen over the next year. I mean, people are talking about the Delta variant and what it could bring, you know, more shutdowns, mass mandates. I mean, who knows what could happen. But I don't think anybody knows what a year from now brings. We go back to, we've all been in a restaurant, we've all been in a bar, we've all been in an event that's been understaffed now. And what that feels like. We don't like it as a customer, but as owners and leaders in this industry, we hate it. Yeah. We want to serve people in the Indianapolis and Central Indiana community and in the Indiana community, and we just can't do it right now. So I pray to God someone here can give me a crystal ball, because I have no idea.
It makes it super tough to plan. Obviously, you know, I think that we all at this point in time are planning and hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. And there's a big swing between those two things. And, you know, hopefully things kind of continue in the same vein, and we get to, everybody stays open and people stay healthy, and we're able to continue to grow. I mean, beer sales for us were up 25% over last year, which was about flat from the year before. So we're seeing some really great growth on the beer sales side through bars and restaurants being open again, and our strong grocery sales stayed after that. But consumer patterns have shifted for people, and they're going different places and spending their money differently than they were a year or 2 years ago. So it's a really interesting world to live in and try to navigate.
Chris, I think if we stay innovative and just smart business owners as we are, everyone on this stage, we're going to kill it, because we had no warning of what was the last 18 months, what it was going to look like. And now that we have some idea, we're going to innovate. We're just going to keep innovating. For me, it's pack sizes, changing bags, changing sizes, changing sources. You might get a sticker. Good luck. I might use a Sharpie. I mean, it just, like, the price, you get what you pay for. I just have to keep changing with what the consumer wants. In the candy industry, for example, we were dead with Friddle, by the way. Best chocolate in town saved our business. Chocolate saved the day, again. But Friddle was dead because it's a specialty candy, because when people were fearful for their life and their parents and their children, they went to a store. You went to commodity candy, which is the candy aisle, and you know this, actually everyone with the product here knows this. Commodity candy, but like I wanted peanut M&Ms. I didn't need like the Dove chocolate with the sweet messages or Friddle. Just like, give me what I know in handfuls. You know, this might be my last day. Like, so that's why I have so much hope for it can only get better. You know, I'm going to stay in confections forever, but what I sell and how I do it will look different.
Well said. Anything, Brian, Allison, to add?
I think we changed our business model 6 times at least. During all of this, we were making whole chickens and mashed potatoes, and we're a pastry shop at one point. So our team just had to be flexible, and they were rock stars.
And you're a really, really good pastry shop, by the way, okay?
Thank you.
And I know you agree watching, and we want to hear from you. Keep dropping your questions in. Brian, anything to add?
The only thing with us is it was nothing, and then all of a sudden there's this burst. And we're not real sure what to. We love it. Don't get me wrong. It's exactly what every business wants. Hard to handle at times, but is that going to be how it's going to be forever? Probably not. What it's going to be like a year from now? Do we keep hiring? And it's a lot of unknowns.
We were very fortunate as a city. We've had more than 100 events that we've hosted since the pandemic, since last July, safely welcoming hundreds of thousands of visitors to the city. One of our more recent was our first trade show, the National Confectioners Association, of which Carrie sits on the board and was instrumental in enticing them from Chicago down to Indianapolis. And it was candy galore, and you could see the rebounding. 2 of the alarming trends I saw, mints and gum sales down because everyone's been wearing masks and not worrying about their breath, apparently. That should be alarming.
Drink whiskey.
Terrifying.
That was a joke. That was truth. I heard that, but no one's really laughing.
I would think you would want to do mints because you're breathing and yeah, totally. I started brushing my teeth after lunch. I'm like, wait a second, this is what my breath
Mints
tastes
and gum were down. By the way, here on the Vogue, what year do you think the Vogue Theatre opened?
1978.
1938. A Bob Hope movie was played. 25 cents for adults, 15 cents for kids. There were seats, not the bar area per se. A couple other questions here. We're moving right along. Hard seltzers. How did that come to be? Are they sticking around?
Oh, they're sticking around.
And
Hard
why
seltzers
is
are
that?
going
I want to
nowhere.
understand why hard seltzers are so popular and if they're sticking around.
If anybody can answer that,
Can
that's
I-
great. Yeah, please.
I wonder,
please.
I'm just
Business?
curious. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, but everything I'm learning in confections is so focused around Gen Zers that I wonder if that is it. I think people are not about excess as much. And am I wrong? Like,
No, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, they're an alcoholic beverage that the majority of them are in the 4.5 to 5%. They're light. They're not super flavorful. They're fruity. They're fun. They're approachable, and they're really simple. So it's been interesting. We talk about it as a craft brewery for a long time because we work really hard to delicately balance the flavors of beer and have subtle nuances that people who are into craft beer really care about. But at the end of the day, with a pachanga, it's somebody who likes a Mexican style lager, and they're going to love it. And so there's a lot of folks, and particularly I think the younger generation, that just reach for something like when I found out hard seltzer's biggest sales were variety packs. I buy things that I want to drink based on the fact that I want to drink them, and I'm not playing roulette as far as drinks. Hey, let's give me a variety pack and just throw me whatever flavor. But people do it, and it's definitely sticking around. I mean, it's hundreds of billions of dollars and growing.
Hard seltzers are not like Zima, not like Mike's Hard. They're here to stay for the next 10 and 20 years. Now, I can't say forever, but I'm pretty confident in the next 10 and 20 years they're going to be here. So for some reason, people have decided they feel healthier than they are technically, maybe slightly healthier, maybe not than drinking a glass of whiskey. But yes, they're lower calories, they're low carbs, maybe zero sugar, and people like that. We identify coming out of COVID maybe a little bit as wanting to be healthier. If you're like me, maybe you put on an extra 5, 10, 15 pounds. I'm sucking it in. Thank you, Chris. I saw you go like this. And so I think they're here to stay. I don't know for how long, and I don't know what that looks like. We've talked a lot about what that looks like and how it could impact even their industry and the dessert industry. Do people want dessert beverages? Do they not want dessert beverages? And what does that look
them
like?
to our bar? I mean, the weddings where people, maybe not enticed on the craft or the local as much as the local people because they're coming from all over, but just easily grabbed, easily consumed. They love it, and we've upped our canned cocktail and canned beer game just to kind of have variety. But it seems to be the industry is jumping onto the bandwagon of the seltzer game. I know it's leading. Maybe you guys can speak a little bit more to that.
We have a hard seltzer there. Like everybody has jumped into it, and it was originally, it's Truly and White Claw, and then there's a handful of other things, and then all sorts of breweries make them. Bud makes them, Miller Coors, then craft breweries start making them, and we're seeing at the grocery and liquor store area and retail, you're seeing seltzers come in, and there's more and more of them, and they're actually taking space away from what has traditionally been beer space because people are into them and retailers react to it's like, well, if I can make more dollars and we're selling more seltzers, then we're going to give that space to them. So it's making shelf space more competitive. It's actually part of the whole can shortage because they have gone so crazy and there's been so much growth over.
And carbonated water.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, everything's going into cans right now.
It's helped us because we're short-staffed on bartenders, so the more seltzer and canned cocktails that we sell, the easier it is for us. And funny story, not that funny, but our downtown storage unit got broken into, and the only thing that was stolen were mango White Claws. And there's restaurant equipment. I'm not kidding you. They found them all over downtown.
You're kidding.
No.
That's sad and
But
also very
hey,
intriguing.
we made someone's day.
Brian, you were going to say something? It
I
wasn't
was
you.
Echoing with it's made the bars, it's made our staff a little easier to get through some of the crowds that we've had, the surge in size of events. It's just can. It's a thing.
And that probably helps the supply chain with labor right now, right? I mean, the train is
Absolutely.
hard. I mean, I know multiple of you are craft cocktail people, right? You have craft cocktail mixologists as part of your staff. That's a whole different ball game now that if you can crack open a can and move on.
Well, and
Very
a lot
correct.
of bartenders left the industry during COVID is what I've found too. So it did make things a lot easier.
How is that impacting Hotel Tango in terms of craft cocktails and the bartenders?
Yeah, it's just been a slow rollback. I think that finding good help is still an issue. I still think that there's plenty of demand for a good craft cocktail out there. Going back to larger events or trying to get people through the line, that's where we're seeing a little bit more of that being beneficial or more efficient for us. But trust me, that craft cocktail is not going anywhere.
Even in light of all of the speed of service is a huge thing, and for us, we would do a lot of events with draft beer, and even in light of can shortages, we do a lot of our events when they're bigger and we have the access. We just do it with cans because it's faster and it's easier, and you can Gen Con. We do our beer garden on Georgia Street. It's 100% cans this year, and that's because you can move it through fast and it's easier, and people can just get on and go because everybody wants it right now, and people don't want to wait 7.5 minutes for a craft cocktail. Just give me a
Or even pour a beer.
We just partnered and did a ticketed dinner with a company called Adult Spring Break that's getting ready to launch, and it's all pre-mixed cocktails, and we paired those with dinner, and it sold out. People were really excited about it, which I've never really seen before. I've never been a mixed, a pre-made cocktail person, but it's definitely a trend that's sticking, and there's some great products that are getting ready to come out, too, that are already out.
Adult Spring Break.
Yes, great
Okay.
name.
Events industry, weddings. What are we seeing? Who's booking some of the special event venues first in, first out? Corporate? Is it events? Locally, out of market, weddings, etc.? What are you seeing there?
Well, in the wedding side of things, we plan months, if not a year out. So one of our saving graces last year during the pandemic, although we didn't have hardly any events, people, not only were they rescheduling, postponing, but people were still planning a year out. So now we're dealing with those people that we filled the calendar in 21, later 21, and in 22. The challenge that we're facing is that things are still the same price that we sold them a year ago, but they're the higher costs. So we're navigating that challenge right now. We're not also seeing that much corporate stuff quite yet. I don't know about anybody else, but it's starting to trickle. But man, it's birthdays, it's social events, it's wedding. It's heavy. Everybody's getting out.
And is there a day that goes by that someone's not seeking to clarify capacity, COVID protocols, maybe misunderstanding and understanding? Are you seeing that?
I really am not seeing a whole lot of that anymore coming from the client. Now, we're going to offer our safe practices, and we have certain things. Our staff is vaccinated. They have to wear a mask if not. And, we're meeting all of the guidelines. But really, customers just want to plan their parties, and we're getting a lot of demand for it, too.
The exact same.
I want to ask Carrie, you had the audacity, again, best chocolate in town, to gobble that up. It's there next to Bottle Works, Mass Ave. How is that? Talk us through your decision making with that. You said chocolate saved the day, but dive a little deeper, if you don't mind.
Well, so Newfangled means objectionably new. Like, how dare you mess with our peanut brittle? So best chocolate in town technically was offered to me weeks before COVID. And it was too good to be true. And Elizabeth went on to seek being a nurse, and just like so lucky. And we're friends in the industry. As I sat with the company and then COVID happened, I thought, oh no, like I don't know how to do this. I didn't want to store. I mean, I've always been manufacturing, not retail, so that was super lucky. But it's the people that I care about so much. And so actually, one of my bigger challenges was meeting a new group of people that made everything for one store versus distribution. So I spent a lot of this, like everyone handled COVID different and the fears and how it was affecting you. It was more all about the people, just kind of like getting to know people and figuring best chocolate out and how does it integrate with Friddle. But I used that year plus to figure out, reverse engineer everything. What works, what doesn't, what are the recipes, why do we have that, why don't we? But I was also kind of like treading lightly. And now, this far in, I was like, yeah, I don't like that, bye. And I mean, I just use that as an example. Everything she did was great. But it's more like, what are the customers responding to? And let's do more of that.
Allison, your second location, the heart of downtown, also during the pandemic, that takes an audacious mind.
We were crazy.
What went through your mind?
Well, we were already halfway through when everything happened. When we were looking at this space 2.5 years ago, we're like, great, the new Hyatt's coming in. Banker's Life is directly across the street. We have a parking garage that is connected to our building that is full of people who are working downtown, and they have to walk through this hallway right by our shop every morning. So we were like, this is dummy proof. Like, there's no way. And then a pandemic happens, and you're halfway through it, and then you're like, what do I do? So, that happened. It was March 15th. We were all sitting around a table in 2020 and found out, that we couldn't have customers in our restaurant anymore. And we laid off 95% of our staff. 2 days later, I found out I was pregnant, and it got really interesting from there. So we ended up, our customers are incredible, our staff's incredible, and they really pulled it together. And honestly, we wouldn't have gotten through it without them. We were able to slowly start adding our full-time staff back and offering them full-time hours. And then from there, we felt confident enough that we could pull off downtown.
Brian, curious, you do a lot, you said events, obviously, and specifically weddings. Are people changing the cadence of how far in advance now they want to try to book a wedding? In other words, it's even more competitive, and they're thinking 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years out. What are you seeing in wedding bookings? I'm happily married, 20 years in the making, asking for a friend.
Gotcha. Happy to oblige. No, the timing is still relatively similar. 9 to 15 months is kind of our range. What we are seeing is actually a smaller sized wedding. We're a 200, 225 seated venue, and we are now seeing 150, 100. People want to spread out a little bit more. They don't want a sardine can you. They also are going for a little bit more higher end experience, like a little higher end food or a craft cocktail. So those are the changes we've seen most significantly.
Okay, rapid fire here, fire for you. And Allison, I'm going to start with you. One thing you said is masks and vaccines is something in place for the health and safety guidelines that you proactively share with a customer. What is one thing that you think will stick around that has been in place during the pandemic that will continue post-pandemic? What's one thing, maybe in your business, that you've changed, a way you go about producing something, delivering something, preparing something that you think you might consider having stick around here into the future?
Oh, that's a rough one. Well, I think we all are still having PTSD from what we just went through and are still going through. I think that an appreciation for getting to go to the job that I have every day. I know that's not really so much as how the business has changed, but being able to get up and still go to my business and not having to shut my doors, I have a whole nother level of appreciation. And for the staff that literally stuck in there and did it right next to us too. I mean, we couldn't have done it without the people that we had next to us.
There's a closer bond with you and those who you work with.
Absolutely. I mean, we're a family at this point. I saw them more than I saw my family. I mean, I remember, like I said, I found out I was pregnant right after. We had to lay everyone off, and we had 5 people in the kitchen, and I went in the morning, and my business partner and one of our other employees, Keegan, were there already making croissants at 6 a.m., and I walked in, and I had this, look on my face, and they're like, what now?
What's your favorite thing from your bakery?
Oh, chocolate mousse-filled croissant.
I'd probably eat that.
Yeah, it's dipped
It's
in
great.
chocolate.
Anything, the way you conduct business that will stay in place that you might think about here in the next year?
I just think the take-home, carry-out options that we all had to pivot and create, essentially. You know, we were never, yes, we sold bottles in our shop, but that was the extent of it. But you've seen, obviously, the DoorDashes, the Drizzlies, all the carry-out, takeaway company that have just exploded. We'll continue to offer a great craft cocktail experience at home for those that are, still wanting to. Maybe they learn that they love being at home and they don't want to go out anymore, or others that are still a little bit afraid to get out. I think the carry-out options will stay for a long time.
For us, guarding our door is really one of the things, because when you have capacity issues, you've really got to be locked on. And forever, as Sun King, if you came to one of our places, we called it get in where you fit in. It's like, all right, cool, find a place, sit down, grab a beer, and you're good. But now, we elevated our level of service, and now, during the week when it's slower times, like downtown or some other places, you can still kind of cruise in and not necessarily, somebody's always there to greet you, but once it starts to fill up, there's always somebody who's keeping an eye. We never had a host or a concierge, if you would, but now it's like, okay, let's be locked on and let's know who's where and what and how we're taking care of things, and it makes for a better customer experience, and that's stuck for us for sure.
Each of you, again, have such a strong following for your brands, and you've cultivated them, and you've built them, and you love them, and you love your employees. That is so clear, having and knowing each of you individually, and here as a group. I am empathizing with supply chain disrupted, hard to find staff, customers saying, I want that table. Why can't my event happen? Where is that pastry? Why is my beer taking longer? I don't understand the hours of operation. And how do you communicate through that to these brand advocates, these consumers who are getting angry? I know it's a full-time job online even, but are there any best practices? And for anyone listening, just how you've been able to communicate delicately through that?
This has been one of the ones that we didn't really see coming when people popped out of their homes again, the challenge to one of our core things is service. We that's what we're selling. High level of service, great experience. We always try to respond within 24 hours of all of our emails, inquiries. But again, it's so much that we've had to adjust that time frame because our staff just can't get through the log of email responses that they have to respond to. And again, we all have a high level of service and we want to serve this community, but that has been one of the highest challenges of many that we're facing right now. So it's just being patient, trying to tell people we are on it, but man, there's a lot to be on right now.
I'm trying to start to define what just the thank you, really define, oh, thank you so much. Or yeah, shop local. And okay, thank you so much. Because I started taking all my corporate meetings at production. Because oh yeah, you can look at some really beautiful stuff. But unless they see people working so hard that it was just thank you so much. And just telling people the size. We are 20 full-time. We are 60 part-time in the holiday. Just your purchase means the world to us. Maybe we need another means the world to us because we do use that one a lot. But just being so sincere. They can choose anywhere, Allison and a couple of other beautiful, all the sweet makers, we all know each other. We all would love that $5 per person purchase, 200 to 1,000 people, right? And so if it's not a fit with us, thank you so much for thinking of us. Here are the names and numbers of the others in town. Because either way, it's all about Indianapolis. But truly just being super authentic right now. And I think that makes the difference sometimes when they're looking at your venue versus another. Yeah.
When the complaint or we get a bad review about our pricing or something like that, I typically invite them to come in. We have open kitchens and they can sit and watch our chefs working. And after that, people have a whole other level of appreciation. I mean, the pastry that we're selling for $8 a piece has probably taken a week to make and multiple hours and layers, and every layer is a different recipe. And then after that happens, then just cutting the damn thing. I mean, you have to have a torch and a knife and you sit there for 30 minutes cutting this thing, and we only have 2 people qualified to even cut it to make it look good. So I think when people see all of that, it's the lights go off and oh, this is why I'm paying $8 for this delicious little treat.
Well said. Clay, you had something.
I was just going to say, I echo what they're saying, but authenticity rings through and people see it and feel it. The gratitude is real. I know that all of us, having gone through this, I regularly, whether I'm walking in my doors and somebody's walking out with a 12-pack under each arm or is coming in to grab a keg, you're thank you so much. Thank you for choosing to support our business. And obviously you're taking that beer home to share. So, without you, we wouldn't be here. And I think, bringing people to your facility, we're fortunate because all of our facilities are production facilities. So you can see people working and doing and having that interaction with guests and having them see the people who are behind their things, whether it's an open kitchen or it's in meetings in your chocolate shop. You're oh, wow, these are real people doing real things. And as we've worked through all of this, we worked through some of the toughest times that hopefully we'll see in our careers, and we didn't know it was coming. And so now we're here, and I think that we're all incredibly grateful. Again, I'm grateful to be able to go to my job every day because there was a moment last March where I didn't know if Sun King was going to be here a year from now. And it's something that at this point I put 15 years of my life in. And, when it's on the line, it's really true gratitude to get to be here and that we got to retain our employees and that we're still a part of the community. So
Is that wild, Chris? That all of our businesses, genuinely, we weren't sure if we'd still be in business.
That is. And
how long can you wait this through?
Right. And that's, again, there's a level of empathy. And I know those watching, each of you as business owners and all the time and effort and energy to get to that point. And Allison, I'm really focused in on that appreciation piece. Legitimately, and I know you appreciate authentically each and every person who books an event, who buys something, who recommits their order, who continues to be a brand advocate. And the cool thing is, and I think it's a little bit Indy-centric, is you also are all very attentive and responsive. In other words, you're going to come in and for a site inspection, and you might want to book the event venue. You and your wife are going to be there. You're going to shake hands. You're going to say, "You have my word. This is going to be great." You step inside the production facilities. You greet a customer. You're online, socially interacting, and that comes through, I think, in that brand promise that each of you have, which is super cool. We're getting a little low on time. Again, if you have questions, please continue to have those put in. The last thing we're going to do is some rapid fire. But before we do that, I want to talk about equity, inclusiveness, diversity. It should be on our minds. We need to be thinking that way. How can Indianapolis make sure that in everything we do and everywhere we go and how we market ourselves and invite folks here, how do we make sure that we're full of equity and Hoosier hospitality is coming through?
Well, this may sound too down-home Hoosier, Southern Indiana guy, but it's the oh shucks. It's the hey, we're Hoosiers. It's the hey, we're welcoming to you. It's just the welcoming that we do as Midwesterners and Indiana folk and Hoosiers. That's the way we can be the most inclusive that we can be. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, whatever you want to be. That's great. It's just the oh shucks. We're from Indiana. We're here. We're sorry. It's the ope. That's what we're about as Hoosiers. And in my mind, that's how we can be the most inclusive that we can possibly be, is just respect the hell out of everybody, because that's who we are as Hoosiers, is we're very honest and nice. And that will automatically, in my mind, lead us to being a little bit more inclusive and respectful no matter what the hell we're going through.
Yeah, we do. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We do have one of the kindest cities. And that video you make us watch and sign the Hoosier Hospitality Agreement gets us there. So diversity, equity, inclusion means something a little bit different to me, checking a couple of those boxes. It is just recognizing difference. I mean, it's probably more than that. I think we really need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think it's okay to ask your white male allies what is hard for you. What's hard for you to answer? What's hard for you to ask? Because I'll give you the inside. Do you know what I mean? And then just constantly encouraging them to engage and ask their team, what are your opinions? You can even approach your team to be like, I'm probably going to mess up big time, but what are your thoughts on this? People who know, will have your back anyway. And then just start really small and just test it out like that. But just understanding difference is just diversity. That's all it is. It means a lot of different things. But it's something that is different. And then equity, well, we won't turn it into a whole seminar, but those things, you just Google, what does equity mean? What does inclusion mean? And then you might have an opportunity, your business or your town, your smaller town outside of Indy, or you may not, but just being aware that it's a big part of other people's lives, that means a lot.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Brian?
Outside of the pandemic, last summer with the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others, I took a personal approach to try to, figure out what I'm doing wrong and how I can be better. Being married to a person of color, understanding her daily life as a non-white person, and then also, trying to, understand the, systemic racism that we all face in society, but then translating that to the business. Okay, I'm in the Martindale Brightwood neighborhood, making money in a historically predominantly black neighborhood. How can my local community, how can I get those people into my shop? How can I serve them as a community leader? How can I work with other vendors that are people of color? So that's been something as our business, as Tinker House Events, has really worked on to making sure that we're being inclusive in that regard?
I think it's something you can't just treat as a trend because it's going on right now. It needs to be constant open dialogue and having these conversations with the staff, even when they do get a little heated, because, you know, we've had those conversations as well, but being able to hear everyone out and get their feedback and what's important to them, I think it's important to keep it front of mind.
We've got a group at Sun King that meets every other week, and we talk about it, and we have some of the difficult conversations, and we talk about like how do we make a more diverse Sun King? How do we make our workplace or attract talent that isn't a bunch of beardy white guys? And we have a pretty overall diverse male to female ratio, and we've had some ethnicity here and there, but it's a tough industry sometimes, and so we talk about how to attract talent. I think for us, the biggest thing that we do is try to be involved in our community and figure out ways to give back in organizations to work with. And so, this year for our 12th anniversary, we did a thing called 12 Days of Sun King, and we gave $1 from every pint sold in all 6 of our locations over 12 days, and we split it up. We highlighted a different organization from around. We started on June 19th, and we did Juneteenth. We had a broad range, and it was a lot of different groups, and there was a lot of diversity involved in the programs and the people that we supported. But in 12 days, we raised over $16,000, and then cut checks and gave it back to those organizations, and just to try to help. So it gave us the opportunity to be a voice and say, hey, here are these great organizations around our community that are doing really great stuff for the Indianapolis area, and then also raise their awareness and then give them a little bit of funding to help them continue to do the good work that will help make Indianapolis a better and more diverse place. And then overall, hopefully our businesses will benefit from it. Our community will benefit. So,
Chris, I think one of the most important takeaways I had this last week at a leadership thing in California is I think if we all look at our middle management and above and intentionally go into areas like, for example, if you don't know who they are, go to your friends, go to your community, go to visit Indy, people who would know, and seek out, for example, a black college. I can say this because I'm of color, but just for an example, go to black colleges, start posting your middle management and above. They don't need an entry level. A college student doesn't need an entry level job. That's why they're paying all that money, but go for, this is uncomfortable for some, and sorry if we're taking a left turn here, but middle management and above, because you can win or sink your business at middle management.
I love that train of thought, Carrie. Love that train of thought. Brian, you were going to add?
I think just what I was going to say is, you touched on it's not a trend, and making sure that us as a community continue to think about this. A lot of us are trying for the first time, and that's unfortunate that we're just now to that point. But going forward, let's make sure that as a small business industry, our local community small business, that this is what we think about, not just this year. I think that I'm hearing that from everybody on this panel here, so that's great to hear.
I love the getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, leaning into the discussion. And each of you are community leaders, and everyone watching cares deeply about Indianapolis. And so if we can continue to talk, we had a good segment on the table. The first iteration in January at the Hi-Fi, we talked about the importance of equity. We're talking about it again today. Everyone watching cares again about your brands and your business and the community. And so as community leaders, it's incumbent on us to continue talking and worrying and discussing and strategizing. And so that's, I think, the Indianapolis way.
The talk is good, but the action is more important. So that's not, I'm just adding that on.
It is, and it's important as small business people to be involved and to be actively searching out solutions and trying to engage in that middle management and up is huge.
That's a big takeaway. Actions speak louder than words, right? We teach our little people that. Okay, there's probably a huge concert at the Vogue getting ready to descend on this stage. I know each of you have wanted to perform on the stage of the Vogue. 4 quick questions, and then we'll have some closing thoughts. And we're going to go right down the line here, okay? What's in your refrigerator?
A lot of different kinds of milk for my daughter. So you got like the oat milk, the whole milk, the almond milk. She's trying out a lot of different things now. So I feel like I just see a lot of milk in there.
Meats, cheeses, beer. Some Sun King beer, too. Always.
Literally nothing. Yesterday was trash day, and I cleaned out my fridge, and I leave town tomorrow for a little bit, and so I have absolutely nothing in my fridge.
That's kind of freeing. Carrie, what about you? We open up your fridge. What are we going to see?
A lot of keto-friendly things, a lot of produce for a different family member, and a lot of sparkling water. We're just big, sparkling, carbonated people.
Allison?
I'm having some odd pregnancy cravings, so I never have pastries from the shop in my fridge, but there are pastries from the shop in my fridge and fruit, because like everything's sweet right now
Oh,
apparently.
I love it. I think I know you're deserving of that. Brian, what about you?
Well, I actually just did grocery shopping this morning, I want to make sure I don't get in trouble with the wife. So a lot of fruits and vegetables, and no junk food at all.
Lots of whole
I
grains.
didn't buy any of that.
If I say the word Indianapolis, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Brian?
Home base. You know, this is born and raised for me. So love it.
Hospitality.
Downtown.
Evolving.
Friendly.
Home.
Home. I like that. There's no right or wrong answer here at the Vogue on a Friday.
I don't do good with rapid fire.
Good, then we'll start with you. Favorite concert of all time?
My favorite concert of all time was here at the Vogue. Circa 2006, I saw the Abbott brothers. It was early on before they caught fire, and there were maybe 75 people in the room, and they stood up here on this stage, and they jumped up and down, and they screamed, and one of them did a backflip off of the snare drum, and you're just like, so much energy out of such a little group for so few people. It was genuinely amazing.
My second concert ever with my brother, and that's one of the things that made it special. Dave Matthews Band. We camped out at Deer Creek. Well, I don't think it's Deer Creek anymore, whatever it's called. 2 days. That was awesome.
I'll get made fun of for this, but Journey.
No shame in that.
Stop believing.
Don't stop believing.
Favorite concert, Peter Gabriel at Deer Creek. And just bonus, here, Johnny Sacco.
Mine is going to be very random, but when I was at the University of Florida my freshman year, the Kanye West College Dropout Tour was going through school. So that was pretty awesome.
I'd say so.
I'm dropping a rap concert as well, Up in Smoke tour. I can't even remember the year, but I will tell you the Vogue story, Battle of the Bands, early 2000s. Our local buddy Jay Elliott and his band won that night. So cool Vogue story.
You're probably wondering what my favorite concert was.
Chris, what's your favorite concert?
Oh, thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Here at the Vogue, George Clinton and the P-Funk.
Ooh.
And about 10 p.m., the bassist came out and stood right there and started playing this really funky groove. And every 10 or 15 minutes, incrementally, someone else would come out. And at the stroke of midnight, George Clinton came, he's right about here, and played until about 2 a.m. And it was one of the coolest concerts I've ever seen, right here at the Vogue.
What do you think they were all doing as they came out in their 15-minute increments?
Probably meditating. Probably meditating. Could have been West Fork, I don't know. Probably wasn't around back in the 90s.
Little West Fork, little Sun King.
Finally, certainly not least, your closing thought. For those listening and watching or rewatching here over the weekend, what do you want the community to know about your business, about what you're doing? What do you want the community to know? Anyone can go.
About the business, probably all of ours is, continue to support local companies for sure. We've all been fortunate. We've made it through this, and we're stronger for it. But we love our customers. Keep coming out, keep visiting your local suppliers, and then just from the discussion, everyone just keep having discussions, keep talking, keep asking questions, keep being open-minded. I mean, that's why we're doing this here today, is to have a dialogue and encourage everyone to continue to have dialogue.
Yeah, thank you all so much, by the way, for coming today. I really appreciate it. I'm fortunate to call you all now. Carrie, you're my friend as well. But thank you so much. And to echo David, just please be patient, too. And I'm sure you're going to hear that from multiple individuals, is be patient with people in the food and beverage industry. We're all wanting to go out right now. I'm going to go out to a local joint later tonight, and it's tough. And so be patient with us, be respectful, enjoy it, but be patient.
I think if you're a fellow business owner out there, you're not alone. We're all struggling through and trying to figure it out. It's why I like being a part of these conversations, is because I feel like our ability to tell our stories and talk about what we're going through can be helpful to other people who are in similar situations. And, you know, if you're a consumer and a fan of our brands or wherever you go, the patience thing is really great. Be patient with the places that you frequent, and honestly, just a little bit more empathy and patience with everyone around us. Everybody wants everything right now or 5 minutes ago and is really antsy about everything, and just need to take a breath and step back and really appreciate the fact that, you know, honestly, we're all working as hard as we can to try to do the best job that we can, and we're facing challenges every single day, and we're overcoming those challenges, and we're trying and striving to be better, whether it's better businesses, better service, better community partners, better hiring practices, more inclusive, all of these things. We're all working on it, but it is a work in progress, and it takes time.
I think I would tell the community to remember that you have your own circle of influence. So when you're shopping local, I mean, definitely all the brands up here, but really, like, just help educate your own circle of influence, whoever that is, what it means to shop local. Spend it like you got it, or just go all in. And part of the patience, I think, too, is being flexible with that business. I want to support Alison, but is there a different kind of product I should buy? Hey, Allison, I want to give you $5 for 200 people. You tell me, what would you like? Do you know what I mean? So if you're of influence at your business, we all love corporate dollars, but if you're doing that, just being flexible maybe within your choices. But I'll take for someone to buy, like, the hardest thing is for us to make the most expensive over no business. So, yeah.
I think people got used to hiding behind a computer and not interacting with people, and it became easier to kind of fire off, you know, some nasty emails instead of taking a second and saying, is this the normal experience that I have at this place? And you know, telling somebody at the restaurant. So if you do have an off experience, you know, tell somebody, call and talk to a manager, you know, before you take to the internet. And I think that, kind of touch on what Carrie just said, you know, for every good experience, somebody tells one person, and for every bad experience, you know, you hear they tell 10 people. And if we could just flip that around a little bit, where people are talking about the great experiences that we're having. And we actually did a promotion where if you showed us any 5-star review for any local business, no matter what, we gave a free macaroon. And that's something that we're still doing. We haven't advertised it so much, but it was just our way that we could help support our local businesses, because honestly, without a lot of them, and you know, I had these group chats with a lot of my peers just to get through some of those hard days and those hard messages.
Yeah, I would say the final word for us, you know, this last year, Indianapolis lost a lot of good places, unfortunately. It was a tough year, and we're all thankful that, you know, we've made it this far. But my parting words would be, you know, still come visit our businesses, but think about, you know, something that you haven't visited yet. Go visit somebody that you don't quite know. Give them a try as well, because all of this local business, we all are on this together. And I think that that's, you know, you can hear it here. We want to support our fellow local business owners. We want you to do that as well.
I want to say thank you for everyone watching and everyone in the community who absolutely appreciates and adores what you do and is appreciative of what you do and how you've made it through, your tenacity, and for you taking a Friday to spend an hour talking about best practices and being vulnerable and talking about these very sensitive, timely topics. Thank you for doing that and for what you're doing in each and every one of your communities. So West Fork especially, thank you for bringing us together as well as the Vogue for hosting us. So Blake and David and Clay and Carrie and Allison and Brian, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for locally, buying locally, loving on your city.
Thank you.
And have a great weekend. Bye-bye.